The second text, though, is one also that I think is very familiar to many of you, and that is the well-known Matthew 25, verses 31 through 40. Now, I have done this with you before, but some of you have probably forgot. But if I say Matthew 25, what should you think? Yeah, see, you forgot already. All right. So when I say Matthew 25, you think and say it out loud. Say sheep and goats. Ready? Matthew 25. Okay, now you're going to remember this for the next time when it comes along, right? So Matthew 25, you say. So if I sometimes said sheep and goats, you'd think, okay, you got it. Here's Matthew 25. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he'll sit on the throne of his glory. And all the nations will be gathered before him, and he'll separate people from one another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he'll put the sheep at his right hand and the goats at his left. And then the king will say to those at his right hand, "Come, you blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger." The word could be translated refugee. "And you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry and gave you food, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? And when was it that we saw you a refugee and welcomed you in, or gave you clothing? And when was it that we saw you sick or in prison and visited you?" And then the king will answer them, "Truly I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers and my sisters, you did it to me." Since today we're celebrating our outreach commitment to the people of Haiti, I wanted my message to connect with Haiti somehow, and why a commitment like this is important to us and for us. I want to first say that this church has had a long-standing connection to the people of Haiti. Actually, many, many years ago, over 30 years ago, there was a member of this church who was connected to an orphanage in Haiti. Some of you remember. Who was her name? Anybody know? Want to shout it out? Ruth Zimmerman. And the Sundays and Thursdays ministry actually started in connection with that to raise funds to send money to an orphanage in Haiti. So you all have been connected for a long time. That particular Haitian connection ran its course, but the Sundays on Thursdays continued up until the present. And by the way, we're going to have one wonderful celebration, final celebration of that ministry on June 23rd here on the church grounds. Let's have a great crowd for that. It's a Thursday evening. It'll be beautiful. Well, I can't give you beautiful weather, but yeah. My own direct connection to Haiti started with a trip to that country. It was either 1989 or 90. But Haiti had been on the radar screen of my soul for about a decade prior to that. The first Haitian person I ever met and developed a friendship with was a dishwasher at a restaurant I was working at in between college and seminary. I was a cook, if you can believe it. Don't be impressed. My uncle or my friend's uncle in New Jersey owned the restaurant. That's the only way I got the job. But I can, the cook taught me. This dishwasher had come from Haiti, fled Haiti during the political violence on a boat. Remember the boat people crisis. And somehow he got to New Jersey, and he and I became friends. I studied French in high school. I was the only one in the restaurant that could talk to him. And so I did. We got to be friends. His name was Salome. Shortly after that, though, or a few years later, Haiti got on my soul when I watched a video of a man named Tony Campolo, and I have quoted Tony many times. He's an author, an evangelist, a speaker, very funny, powerful, brilliant man. And Tony did a lot of work in the country of Haiti. And when I was a pastor in my late 20s in northern Wisconsin, I watched a video. I think it was just when videos came out. And there was Tony doing a talk. And he told this story. And I've probably told it to some of you, or you've heard it before maybe. But Tony said he was in Haiti, in the capital city of Port-au-Prince, which is where most of the things that I and we are connected to exist. And he was there for a series of meetings dealing with justice and hunger and needs of the poor. And at the end of a day of meetings, he went to a restaurant. I mean, we all got to eat. Went to a restaurant and ordered up a meal. He was by himself. And he was sitting at a table next to a window. And he ordered up a meal. His meal came to him, nice plate of food. He was about to dig in, and he looked at the window, and there were about a half a dozen starving children with distended stomachs and blonding hair. And they had their faces pressed up against the window pane, and they were staring at his plate. And the waiter saw what was happening, and he came over and he slowly closed the shade in the window and said, "Don't let them bother you. Enjoy your meal." And Tony said, I'm not into guilt trips. This is not about guilt. We all got to eat. He said, but as he sat there, that text from Matthew 25 felt like it was flashing neon in the restaurant. He said, because I couldn't sidestep the fact that those kids staring at my plate were Jesus, were Christ to me. And he said, it's overwhelming because that just comes at us from so many angles. He said, but I knew at that moment my life, period, but especially as a Christian, made no sense if it wasn't somehow connected to some tangible effort to deal with that reality. And he said, so he spent the rest of his life. Tony's in his 90s now. He's not too active. He had a stroke recently. He slowed down finally. But he spent his life responding, not just in Haiti, but all over the place. Inspired so many people. So many of my songs in my music ministry were based on Tony's stories. As the years went by, I actually got to be the musician at several events where he was the speaker, and he and I got to know each other. And I, a couple of times, even got to sing back his stories to him through my songs. It was pretty cool. But my own relationship with that Matthew 25 text has evolved. I mean, it's been a beautiful motivator for so many ministries of compassion and justice. The way we treat people who are victimized and exploited and left out is synonymous spiritually with how we respond to God. You can't separate those things. So when we reach out to the poorest of the poor, we are reaching out to Jesus. It's a beautiful thing. In fact, it's offensive to try to talk about God with poor people without dealing with material needs. I can't remember who said it first. I think it was a seminary professor of mine, but he said, the Great Commission to bring the gospel to the world, that's at the end of Matthew 28. You've probably heard it, some of you grew up in traditions that were very evangelical and going out and trying to convert people. And the Great Commission, go into all the world, proclaiming the gospel, baptizing and converting people in my name, and teaching them to obey all my commandments. That's the Great Commission. It's been a bit of a complicated thing historically because too often cultural imperialism went along with Jesus. But the professor said, we need to always remember that the Great Commission of Matthew 25 precedes the Great Compassion, rather, of Matthew 25, precedes the Great Commission of Matthew 28. In other words, make sure you deal with people's needs first, if they're in need. before you start talking about God. Gandhi put it this way: with Christian missionaries in mind in India, Gandhi once said, "Do not come to India seeking only souls. We are not ghosts. If God is going to come to the starving masses of India, God dare not come except first in the form of food." I'm glad and grateful that this congregation and the United Church of Christ as a denomination and many, many others understand that the path of Jesus is not just an escape to heaven after we die. It is about who we are and how we are who we are here and now, and what we do with this gift of life as humans. Life in these human bodies and here on earth, and understanding that everything's connected: body, soul, mind, heart, spirit, flesh, bone, body, earth, air, water, compassion, justice. It's all connected. We're all connected. And that leads us to that Corinthians text. The Bible uses the metaphor of the body to explain that we are all connected. We're a part of each other. Not just spiritually and not just Christians. The Bible's really clear that the whole human race is a family and that we are dependent upon the earth, interdependent. We're all connected. Why is this important? Because it changes how we understand what we're doing in things like our outreach to Haiti. Because if we're doing it because we understand we're all connected, and not just because it's a good thing to help the needy or to help those less fortunate. I mean, I understand the good intentions that's often behind those expressions. But I think the Spirit is challenging us to go deeper than that. Because those phrases can keep us separated. And that's the problem with terms like first world and third world. When we're talking about countries like Haiti. As a Haitian friend of mine said one evening when a group of ours that I had brought was listening to him teach us, he said, please stop using the terms first world and third world. Stop using terms like underdeveloped world. He said, if you need a term, we'd rather you use the term the plundering world and the plundered world, because at least it's historically accurate. And then he said, please challenge yourself to go deeper as Christians in the way that you use Matthew 25. This friend of mine was a biblical scholar. He was an ordained interfaith minister. He said, don't use us to get to Jesus. Don't see us, please, as the least of these. People that you should help. And then he quoted a well-known Aboriginal saying, which says, if you've come to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you've come because your liberation, your freedom is bound up with mine, then let's work together. And then he went on to tell us that what Haitians really want and need from partners in places like this is respect. And he took apart the etymology of the word respect. Spect meaning to look, spectacle, spectate. And the prefix re means again. The word means look again. He said, that's what we want you to do. When you look at Haiti, many people from your culture tend to see a bunch of poor Black people who simply can't get their act together. He said, when you look at us that way, you take no time to learn our story. We didn't just get this way. Poverty always has a history. Take some time and learn our history. Learn who we are. Learn who you're working with. And understand that we have gifts to give you. Don't come down here just to help us. Come down here to meet us with an open heart so that you get taught also you receive also. Well, we're all connected is really his point. And as I was thinking about this, it made me think of one of my favorite quotes from Alice Walker in the book and the movie, The Color Purple. I'm sure most of you have probably seen it or read the book. And here's the quote. Here's the thing, say Suge, the thing I believe. God is inside you and inside everybody else. You come into the world with God, but only them that search for it inside find it. And sometimes it just manifests itself even if you're not looking or don't know what you're looking for. Trouble don't do it, or trouble do it for most folks, I think. You know, sorrow, feeling real bad. It, I asked? Yeah, it. God ain't a he or a she, but a it. But what do it look like? I asked. Don't look like nothing, she say. It ain't a picture show. It ain't something you can look at apart from anything else, including yourself. I believe God is everything, say Suge. Everything that is or ever was or ever will be. And when you can feel that and be happy to feel that, then you found it. Shug, a beautiful something, let me tell you. Or Suge, rather. She frowned a little, looked out across the yard, leaned back in her chair, looked like a big rose. And she say, my first step from the old white man was trees, then air, then birds, then other people. But one day when I was sitting quiet and feeling like a motherless child, which I was, it come to me. That feeling of being a part of everything and not separate at all. I knew that if I cut a tree, my arm would bleed. And I laughed and I cried and I run all around the house. I knew just what it was. In fact, when it happened, you can't miss it. That line. I knew if I cut a tree, my arm would bleed. That's it. That's why when we're centered, we do any of the outreaching we do. Because we're it, and it's us. If we cut a tree, our arms bleed. If we exploit and harm the earth, we exploit and harm ourselves. If we exploit people in countries like Haiti, we exploit ourselves. If we ignore them, we ignore a part of ourselves. If we love people and regard them with dignity and respect, we experience dignity and respect within ourselves. Our scriptures say we're all connected, but do we believe it? I mean, it's one thing to say it. Does Haiti or the Haitian people have anything that we need? I would say absolutely. But I'm not going to tell you what it is. I don't have time to get into it anyway. But I think if we nurture this connection that we're celebrating today, we will receive some things that will be vital and transforming. So I'm going to close with a quick story that will illustrate some of what I'm trying to say here. Actually, there's two stories, but I'll see how it feels after the first one. There's a Buddhist master named Jarvis. Jarvis Masters is his name. And the unique thing about Jarvis, or one of the unique things, is that he's a death row inmate in San Quentin, spending his life on death row. And he studied and committed himself to a Buddhist path and took vows and is regarded as a holy man. He was out in the yard one winter day in San Quentin, and in the fence, there was a little place where you could look through the fence and see out, and it's quite a view. It's, it's ocean and windsurfers. And he said they were looking out, and it had rained, and there were some puddles, some big puddles in the yard between the prison and the ocean. And this beautiful big seagull came pretty close to the wall and sat down in a puddle. And a young prisoner, a young gang guy, real tough guy, real buff, picked up a rock, and he was going to try to hit the bird. And if you don't know why, you haven't spent much time with young guys lately. And Jarvis, when the guy was about to throw, Jarvis reached out and grabbed his arm. And a lot of people were watching, and they were like, oh no. Because, you don't get up in someone's personal space in prisons like that. And the young guy went off, and he said, what do you can use your own imagination on the language. He said, what do you think you're doing? And Jarvis said, that bird got my wings. And the man put the rock down, and Jarvis walked away, and nothing happened. He said, for a couple of weeks, people would come up to him and say, Jarvis, what do you mean that bird got my wings? And Jarvis joked and said, when you're in trouble, you just say something crazy and walk away. But they knew what he meant. And I think you know what he meant. So why be connected to a place like Haiti? Because that place got our wings. And it will teach us to fly in ways we don't know now, if we're willing. And yeah, I'm going to leave the second story for another time. Let's just be silent together for a second. Amen.